All right, folks, we're going to get started. Good afternoon. I'm Luke Swetland with the Museum of Natural History and Sea Center. I'm delighted to welcome you all to this, our third Lunch and Learn program of 2025, presented by the museum's Planned Giving Advisory Council. For over 100 years, the museum has been providing a range of educational opportunities to this community, often at no cost. And that includes today's program, a Lunch and Learn, which is designed to help all of us better understand and navigate the complexities of financial and estate planning. Folks, supporting a good cause or organization through an estate gift is a powerful way to ensure that your legacy lives on and that the organization you are supporting will be able to continue to do its good work. So, of course, I encourage you to consider the museum in your estate plans to help ensure the future of this great institution. Now, before we get started, I want to just be sure I invite you to visit the museum and the Sea Center this fall. This month, September, is Member Appreciation Month, so we have a lot of fun activities planned for our members. If you're not a member, consider becoming one so you can take advantage of all those fun things. October 18th, Saturday, is the second annual Mission Creek Beer Festival. It all takes place out of doors. We pair artisan brewers and local foods, and it will be just a really beautiful fall afternoon here at the museum. Tickets are available. Check the website. Later in November, in our courtyard gallery, we'll be opening a new exhibit, The Living Print. This exhibit will showcase the work of three very different nature printing artists, and we'll have a number of hands-on activities so you can get your hands dirty doing some nature printing yourself. So there's a lot to experience, folks. Use our website, sbnature.org, to really find out what's happening and to get all the details. And now, to get us started with today's program, I'm going to hand this over to my colleague, Andrea McFarling. Andrea, take it away.
Thanks, Luke. Hi, I'm Andrea McFarling, Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History's Philanthropy Officer of Legacy Giving. Welcome to today's webinar. We're happy to share with you this free webinar with helpful information on aligning your legacy with your values. Today's webinar is presented by our good friends, Tory and Christine Walker-Bowman. Time has been allocated at the end for questions. Please place your questions in the chat, which you should see at the bottom of your screen. If you should have any technical issues during today's program, please email Robert Shutt. His email will also be placed in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any planned giving questions or need more information. I'm here to help you leave your legacy, and we hope that you will keep the museum in mind in your planning. Now I would like to introduce our two speakers. Salvador Tory Milazzo, is a seasoned trust and investment professional with more than 20 years of experience guiding clients through complex wealth management strategies. He's currently serving as the Senior Vice President and Regional Trust and Investment Manager at Farmers and Merchants Trust Company, where he leads the firm's presence across Santa Barbara County and the Central Coast. Prior to joining Farmers and Merchant Trust Company, Tory worked at U.S. Bank as a senior portfolio manager and at Montecito Bank and Trust, where he began his career in wealth management. Tory is also deeply involved in the Santa Barbara community, serving as chair of the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History's board and president of the St. Francis Foundation board. Christine Walker-Bowman is the Chief Operating Officer and Executive Vice President of Farmers and Merchants Trust Company, as well as co-president of Farmers and Merchants Bank Foundation. A fifth-generation member of the Walker family, she has dedicated more than 2 decades to advancing the company's mission of serving Southern California communities through financial services and wealth management. Over the years, Christine has held leadership roles across trust services, compliance, real estate investments, and strategic planning, while championing the growth of Farmers and Merchant Bank Foundation. She serves on the boards of the Orange County School of the Arts, Mission San Juan Capistrano, and the California State University Fullerton Center for Leadership. With a foundation in economics and business from Westmont College, Christine is continuing to expand her focus on real estate through graduate studies at Chapman University. Tory and Christine, thank you so much for speaking with us today. I turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Andrea, and good day, everyone. We're very happy to be here to talk about estate planning and legacy gifts and financial planning and how that can impact both your family and the museum and any other charity or passion that you might have. I'll ask to advance the slide once more so that you can hear a little bit of background about our firm. Farmers and Merchants Trust Company is part of the Farmers and Merchants family of companies. I recently joined this company about 7 months ago, really driven by the mission and values that are at the forefront of how the company conducts itself in our communities. And I'll pass it to Christine to talk a little bit more about what we do.
Thanks, Tori. And I just want to thank Andrea and Luke for letting us have this chance to spend some time with you this afternoon. As you heard, I'm fifth generation of the Walker family, the founding family of the Farmers and Merchants brands. Farmers and Merchants Bank started in 1907. We're over 118 years. And we're in the top 100 banks of the whole United States, if you can believe that. Farmers and Merchants Trust Company actually has been a division of the bank that was spun out in 1920 and is actually the longest, oldest standing standalone trust company in the state of California. Our headquarters are here in Long Beach, where I reside today. And we have offices that span from Santa Barbara all the way down to Newport, and that covers us all the way down to San Diego. The brand of Farmers and Merchants Trust Company has a beautiful story that is very passionate to me, as it's been something that my family has just really cherished. And it does stem from what we're talking about today, which is values. So in 1907, my great-great-grandfather, C.J. Walker, he was already working for a bank, and he acknowledged at that time, he saw that a lot of entrepreneurs, very similar today, when all the tech companies and all the money that's coming forward and changing our landscape of how our economy and our world's going to work. Back then in 1907, if you can imagine, the city of Long Beach actually wasn't a formal city. It was just dirt roads. People were building buildings. They had the horse and buggy. They didn't have the train. They didn't have any of these amenities that we have now. And so my great-great-grandfather acknowledged that the banks at that time were being too selective as to how they were servicing the customers, and that they were taking advantage of individuals that didn't have enough education. Maybe they were dreamers. There was a huge discrepancy between the individuals who had education and the individuals who didn't have a formal education. And so he decided with a group of individuals that they collectively came together and said, we're going to start a new institution that is based on values. And we still have these values in our brands, both Farmers and Merchants Bank and Farmers and Merchants Trust Company. And honestly, the Walker family's own personal mission and values are the same. So we have pillars of honesty, integrity, service above self, church, and family. And those 5 items are what guides us as we navigate through what we do. We still, as we did in 1907, feel that a financial institution is a partner with its community. It allows individuals to actually fulfill their highest purpose. And we wanted to bring honesty and integrity to that process. So as we talk through the opportunities here, Farmers and Merchants Trust Company, as you can see, is a full service trust company. We do investment management, we help endowments, foundations, we work as agent for trustee or as a full service trustee. Very honored to have Tory join us, as he expressed at the beginning of the year. And why don't we go ahead and move to the next slide, as Tory's selected a couple quotes that he's passionate about, and he'll tell you about that.
Sure. Thank you, Christine. And just for everyone in the audience, by the way, happy to see some friendly names there. We do appreciate you all taking the time to attend today and listen to our presentation. We hope you take something away from it. You can hear, based on Christine's background with her family and then my background in this industry for over 20 years, this really, when you think about your long-term impact in your community or in the world with your family, all of these things really become driven by our values. And I thought these two quotes from kind of two different ends of the spectrum, the quote from Warren Buffett, who created the Giving Pledge and has rallied the support of hundreds of billionaires, of the wealthiest people on the planet, to commit to philanthropic goals. He's more about the dollars and cents of this topic and thinking about the reality of what sort of environment do you create for your heirs when you create a wealth plan. And in Warren's words, which are great, he wanted his children to be empowered, but not so much so that they would do nothing with their lives. And I also love this quote from the Reverend Billy Graham, really underscoring that it's not the material things in our life that make the difference, but it's really the legacy of our character and the impact that we leave behind. And so I hope today you'll be able to get some tidbits or some helpful ways to think about financial planning, your estate planning, and what types of conversations you want to have with your family and your friends or your heirs or the nonprofits that you're involved with. Because I think, as you'll hear, it's really all about a conversation. Christine and I are going to be having a conversation for the next 20 or 30 minutes. And then hopefully, we can have some good question and answer at the conclusion of the call.
Yeah. And something, Tory, that I don't think Andrea mentioned is that if you have any questions throughout what we're talking about, or you have something that pops in your brain, just stick it in the chat, and then she'll facilitate getting it to us, and we'll answer that question either as it comes or at the end. But this is supposed to really just be an open conversation, and we'll move to the next slide. It's meant to allow you our perspective of a sample of how to structure when you think about these things. Because just like if you're building a business or you're trying to actually plan an event, it's the same thing as when you're doing your wealth plan management. You start with what you know, you start with what your variables are that you have, and then you design how you want that to look. And where the experts come in so needed in order to help us is really navigating the other elements that overlay on top of money, which is your taxes and really life expectancy and family dynamics. So Tory, why don't we start and jump into number one on this?
Sure. Thanks, Christine. So what we've come up with is a mindset as a starting point for this entire process. And it's really a mindset of having to take a step back and think outside of yourself as a way to make these long-term goals. Well, if you're making a personal long-term goal, like saving for your retirement, that's a very, that's in the Warren Buffett world of the dollars and cents and solving that math equation of how much money do we need for specific goals. But when you start to ask questions about who do you want to support going to college, or do you have the ability to put your grandchildren through college, or is there a family property that you would like to become a legacy getaway for your family? Or could that same property be an impactful gift for a nonprofit to add to their endowment? We really kind of have to step outside of our normal routine and have a mindset of what does the future look like. And a story that I have that I think is a good summary of this, when I started in the investment industry in 2004, I was working in a family office in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, for a family that a husband and wife who had just retired from Wall Street. Their kids were in elementary school. And this was you can imagine a very high powered couple from Manhattan who left that environment to raise their family. And they made some really interesting moves as they considered how they wanted to do philanthropy and what they were passionate about and how they would include their kids in that process, for the rest of their lives. And they really focused and established their family foundation built around the arts and education, primarily because they saw these goals or they saw those initiatives as something that they could very easily partner with their children as the kids grew up through high school, college, and beyond. And that this philanthropic work could be a shared value, could be something that they were able to do together. And so I just share that as an example, as once you are thinking farther in the future, you can then start to think about, well, who should be involved in that conversation? And Christine, did you have anything you wanted to add about the mindset?
Yeah, it's funny. We were just actually having Tori and I got to be in lovely Santa Barbara yesterday, which was fantastic. Tori and I were meeting with some attorneys yesterday, and we were talking about how having that mindset really helps individuals digest every little piece. And it comes back to the financial part of it, but it also comes back to the management of your relationships. And it all starts with that conversation of time. And so time and how we spend our time is really important. And so we're going to give you a little tidbits on some things, how to think about that. The mindset is something where you just evaluate where you are today and then move forward. What I'm passionate about is obviously creating this family mission statement. My family made a commitment back in 1907 with its mission, and what we took upon ourselves is just that fiduciary mindset of this is something that we want our family to stand by. Now, it didn't mean that everybody in the family has to be in the financial business. As of today, we have a group of at least 25 that we're very close with. And out of that 25, there's only 4 of us that are working in the family business. All the rest of everybody else is doing what they're passionate about, being a teacher, being a missionary. One loves to do the drone video things. Another one loves to do tennis lessons. He's really into that. We have a lot of women we have one that's a baker. So, I mean, everybody has their passion as to what they're doing. And then also as the family gets bigger, you have spouses and you have other extended family that comes into play. But having the family have a commitment to what it stands for allows for there to be no questions about whatever that is. And it allows for you to bring continuity and connection for everybody as that story is basically passed down from generation to generation. And depending on what you're passionate about, that's what sets the tone and color of it. And I don't want anybody to be discouraged if you are in your later years and this is the first time you're hearing about this, or that you're trying to sit here and say, wow, I've already created my plan and I've already figured this all out. There is no wrong time for you to create a family mission statement. All it is it's a testimony of what you as a family stand for. That's all it is. Now, if you want to put on extra elements of it to say, hey, I want that to continue on for generation to generation, well, then yes, you have to put a little effort into the stewardship of it and bring all the family together at least once a year, if not more, in order to talk about it and make an expression of why that's important to you. One of these ladies that I'm so passionate about is Linda Davis Taylor. She was a mentor for me over 10 years ago. She works out of Pasadena, and her focus really is family foundations. And as a family that's had foundations and are gifting for quite some time, I loved how she set together a protocol where she acknowledged that younger kids who come up through the generations most likely are not part of the family mission statement. They don't want to sit in these adult conversation meetings, and they're just not connected with it. They get through their teenage phase and then they're often doing something totally off, in their own direction. They're growing up. So she encouraged us as a family to, when we come together and say I'm just going to use a broad number, say we're giving away, $100,000. She said, carve out some money, $2,000, something of that nature, and make the group of grandchildren come together and let them have just a discussion. What are they passionate about? And let them decide where that $2,000 goes, but also make them responsible for it. So understand that you're just not handing money away like you're throwing it out a window. If you're going to give money away to whatever they decide they're passionate about, the Disney Foundation or who knows what they're into, then make them have to follow up and say, okay, well, what did that organization do with the money? Because we don't just hand money out for free. And again, what that does is it allows for you to bring forward an organic conversation about how the family stewards its values, its money, and what the priorities are. The other element that I just want to talk about with priorities is I can't tell you, countless conversations that Tory and I have where you have one individual in the family that has really been the main money earner, and you have the spouse who really has been handling other things and has not been in the day-to-day management of the money. And there's concern about who's going to pass first and how that surviving spouse is going to handle all these responsibilities, who's the advisory team. And it starts that conversation of, has the plan really been thought through, considering a lot of the responsibilities are going to be passed to someone who's not used to those responsibilities that it takes to manage the affairs. So I'll pass it over to Tory to kind of talk about really these benefits of financial education.
Great. Thanks, Christine. And a bit of a segue, I think, is that as Christine was just outlining, priorities are really about narrowing your goals. And while, the reality is most families today, with the much higher levels of estate tax exclusions, families today can have tens of millions of dollars and not be subject to quote unquote death taxes. So in these types of instances, family foundations may not necessarily be the pathway that is best for a family. A lot of families can find other quote unquote simpler ways to do their philanthropy, but making priorities, we think, is one of the most important elements. We're in an era of constant stimulation. You pick up your phone, and if you're involved in any sort of philanthropy or volunteering, you get, 10 emails a day or 10 videos a day of all these amazing ways that you could give money and make an impact. And we do think one of the most important parts is to really figure out how to manage your time and manage your resources and energy in the key areas where you want to have an impact.
Yeah, and Tory, I just want to express to the families and the individuals that are on the call that it's not necessarily always about money. So don't think of it that you're trying to be in the realm of these individuals that are giving large gifts. Large gifts are nice, but to be honest, a lot of these organizations like the Santa Barbara History Museum, they just want to have consistent individuals involved. And that actually yields to them long-term results. So yes, it can be a monetary gift, but it can also be you donating your time. You actually going out to Luke and Andrea and saying, hey, I actually am really good at this. Is there any way that you can use this talent at the Santa Barbara History Museum? You'd be so surprised about how that saves them money and allows you to participate and help them actually keep everything running or open up a new exhibit. I can't tell you, we have so many organizations that we see time and time again where we actually donate our knowledge and expertise on the finance side, how they work through capital expansions. And all of that just helps them not have to pay for professionals or other things that they would have to spend money on versus actually them fulfilling their mission. So again, you figuring out your priorities, you figuring out your family's talents, will allow you to be involved in the right way for you.
Great. Thank you, Christine. So I think we can move to the next slide, but really we're talking about these same topics of what do we think are the key components of making a wealth plan. This slide, we're going to talk about education components, really kind of the more technical side of what do you think about, who are your resources, and then we tie it all back up with coming back to that topic of communication. This slide is really to just remind all of us of the tremendous resources that we have available. Obviously, there are lots of forums similar to this. Planned giving and legacy gifts are an important source of funding for every organization. So you can find these resources in lots of different places. Your local advisors, your trusted attorney, your tax professional, your investment advisor. These really are the people to start the conversation with as you're simply asking yourself, wow, what should I do with the Mammoth condo? We're not going to use it. The kids would rather go to Hawaii. What could be a creative plan to do with that asset? And, those are the conversations that most advisors love to have. And I think that's kind of a key recommendation is to don't hesitate to ask those types of questions. The other kind of the basic blocking and tackling is really what this slide is all about. And that's if you're younger in life, you're still working, the basic mantras of the earlier you start saving, the more impactful that is over time. Maximizing your retirement savings, maximizing education savings vehicles for children and grandchildren. Also, there's a sidebar there, kind of back to Christine's story around the earlier you can start talking about financial literacy topics with your kids and grandkids, that makes such an impact throughout their lives. And not only for how we all manage our own money in a day-to-day way, but also how we think about what do we want to do with our money. And, obviously in this environment, supporting organizations like the Museum of Natural History that I think are on the forefront of helping solve the environmental crisis. This work really matters and every little bit helps. I think the last point you've already hear us talk about a little bit, but keeping it simple is often the best way to go. It's very easy to go down a path of complexity. But in most cases, particularly as the estate tax laws have become more liberal, and I think the people were still digesting the big beautiful bill as tax laws have become more accommodating, that's really the open door for us to simplify the financial plan. And again, just come back to what are our key priorities. Christine, did you have anything you wanted to talk about in this world of education?
Yes, thank you, Tori. Education, financial education is definitely near and dear to my heart. I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, and both of those individuals I feel underneath my guardianship need to be able to embrace financial education. I myself went through such a journey financially as interestingly enough, my dad, who's worked for the bank his whole career, worked very long hours. And so really didn't have that much time to teach me about financial literacy. And so it really wasn't until I went to Westmont College that I suddenly am out of the house and my parents had given me a debit card and I'm trying to learn how to have a budget. Granted, I lived on campus the first year and I had a meal plan, but still learning about how to balance everything out. I mean, it's a very classic story where I'm calling my parents, I don't know where the money went. There's nothing left in the account. And they're sitting there scratching their heads saying, wait a minute, weren't you just supposed to learn all this through osmosis? And no, it didn't happen. So I can guarantee you that financial literacy does not happen through osmosis. I did actually get exposed at a very young age to 4-H. I raised sheep and I raised pigs, and you have to build a budget and keep track of your expenses. And through selling those animals through 4-H, that's actually how I afforded my first car. So the interesting thing for me now, full circle being a parent, is literally how much as individuals, as humans, we go through our beginning lives without any connection to money and how to plan. And it isn't really until we have to cross that bridge that normally we're having to learn on the fly. And the thing that's working against everybody right now is just that things are costing so much money. And so in order for people to have hope and dream and not to be able to put it on a credit card, because everybody knows we're getting tons and tons of offers of credit cards, then that just starts down a path that's very, very hard to get out of. In addition to that, individuals that have created significant wealth and have created it by your discipline, that is, in my opinion, the most important thing that you can teach anybody is that discipline of money and how it is really focused back on time. And you being able to understand that there is no short way around this. It is a marathon. And we have tons of examples of where individuals have been very diligently, they've saved up money, and then they have a wonderful end to their retirement and how they get to move through that. And that's really just teaching your family how to be financially responsible and to have a fulfilling life. I have one daughter who is a saver, and I have one daughter who is a spender. And within the two of them, it is an interesting dynamic where one of them, I have to encourage her actually how to spend money in a positive way because she feels like all she can do is save. That's all she needs to do. And then the other one wants to spend it like mad. And I'm like, nope. What about this? What about saving? What about future? So the one who's a spender is very much in the moment type of feeling. And for her, she wants instant gratification. She wants everything here and now. And so I'm teaching her that discipline of, well, what about when you want something that costs more money? How are you going to acquire it? Are you going to do a job? Are you going to do something around the house? Like, something that you don't have enough money in your hand right now to buy. And so then what I'm trying to turn that energy into is creative energy. How can she be an entrepreneur to figure out how she's going to buy it? Her most recent thing that she wants is some, if anybody remembers the bean bags. She wants a beanbag for Christmas, but she wants it now. And I'm like, no, you can have it for Christmas. And so anyways, it's this conversation, right? But it just, you have to understand that it starts somewhere. And you can't feel bad about when that process starts. I have clients that have children that are in their 40s where they just believe that they're going to be receiving paychecks all day, and that they don't understand that there actually is a limit to money and how to spend money. And so I'm not treating them any differently than that. We need to start from the beginning. This is how you spend money. This is how you save money. This is the budget. And yes, there is a budget. It is not an endless flow of money. And it's just one of those things where it's a skill, and it's not taught in school. It's taught by either an individual, a mentor. It's something that I'm very passionate about, trying to put a curriculum together because I'm already doing it for my kids. So I want to share it with others. And that takes us to, I think, the next slide that talks about communication and, asking questions, making sure that you don't squash their curiosity, getting individuals to actually think through their decisions that they're making. It allows for all of us to have a better understanding and a better respect for why things are the way that they are. And the honest truth is that my family has always taken the position that any money that we've inherited from our forefathers is a gift. It's not something that we earned or that we deserve. It is truly a gift, no matter if we're a blood relative or a distant relative. And that's a very different perspective to have than to just automatically assume that when our parents pass, everything that they had comes to us. And that's again coming back to that mindset and acknowledging that the individual who worked so hard to earn that money has the right to design and to choose their priorities and to choose where they want their money to go. Is again something that's almost taught. It's doesn't just get there through osmosis. And so that's why we end our story today on communication. It is so important to understand that people don't understand things unless you communicate them. We have a lot of family members that we encourage. They do their estate plan, which is in a lot of legal language, but we encourage them to write a personal letter to their family so that they, in their own words, they can describe what their estate plan is and why they designed it the way that they did. This is something that speaks beyond your life expectancy to the next generation that you can share at any time you want, so that they have directly a message from you. And then it just helps everybody that had subconscious feelings or emotions, and it just provides clarity. This is so helpful for us serving as a corporate trustee. It's so helpful for all the family members that are grieving as we're going through that transition. So I definitely encourage that. And I encourage everybody to continue to always know that you have the freedom of choice in how you design your legacy planning, and that there's lots of ways that you can be creative with it and benefit not just the family, but also foundations and groups like the Santa Barbara Museum of History that are doing wonderful things that are going to impact not just us now, but future generations going on and on.
Yeah.
Tori?
I'll just add that Christine was just touching on this sense of gratitude. And I do think, as the board chair at the museum has benefited from the incredible support of generations throughout the Santa Barbara community. And we are truly appreciative of that. This community has created an institution that will live long and will prosper well into the future. And with that same sense of gratitude, you can you can create that in your own family, but it just, again, it doesn't need to be complicated. It can be as simple as putting your kids through college or buying a car for your grandkid, just setting those simple goals and working towards them. Another anecdote in the world of financial planning, as we're starting to wrap up here, if you're trying to have those conversations around financial literacy and budgeting and spending with a young person, the Greenlight app for your smartphone is a really great tool for that type of thing, for encouraging budgeting. We put a couple of other kind of technical topics on this slide of what are things we should think about. This really for me goes back to find your trusted advisor, sit down, ask questions, and then when you bring it full circle, it's really coming back to what Christine was just talking about, how take the time to share that with your family and bring everyone around the table. And as we wrap up on this slide, I'll kind of tie this back to the museum as well. The best giving is successful giving during your lifetime, and then when you're gone. And the museum really benefits from that sense of volunteerism in our community. Many of the folks on the call today are probably docents or volunteers around the museum campus or C Center. And again, we're very appreciative if you're including the museum in your estate plan. I thought these two quotes were a unique way to kind of conclude and frame up this conversation. The first one, Cesar Chavez, really about the spirit of philanthropy and thinking outside yourself, thinking of others, and having that community in mind as a real definition of success. And then I thought this was a unique quote from Mark Benioff, the founder CEO of Salesforce, huge global corporation. A lot of this financial planning and stewardship comes back to almost thinking of yourself or your family as a business. How do you manage your personal financial affairs to ensure a successful life cycle for your company, for your household, and then also to make those impacts that you prioritize when you're gone. So I don't know. Any other final comments, Christine, or we can pass it back to Andrea?
No, I believe we do have a couple questions that we'll get to, but again, I'm just so grateful for the Santa Barbara Museum letting us have this time to talk to you today.
Well, Tory and Christine, thank you for sharing helpful information with our participants. I do want to start with a few questions. If both of you can tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this line of work as a living and what it is that you're passionate about.
Christine, I'll pass it to you.
Okay. Funny enough, it really was that I worked for a family actually in Santa Barbara before I came back to work for Farmers and Merchants. And it let me see what it was like to work in a family business that wasn't one that our family controlled the ownership on. And it exposed me to how when you have, there was an original husband, he had two sets of kids, each set of kids had different businesses. Let me see real life, what it was like for a family that was dynamic and super wealthy, and the struggles and the complexities that go in that. And I felt that my family had a really healthy structure, and I wanted to share that with others. And that's what really made me passionate about it. And so I've continued to kind of help high net worth families as they've navigated through really complex situations with multiple layers of family members, a lot of real estate, multiple assets. And it just gives me joy that there is a way that I can help families as they go through those conversations.
Great. All right.
The joke in my immediate family is that I originally told my in-laws I was going to medical school, which obviously did not happen. And I think, I've been intrigued by markets and investing forever. That was originally what drew me to this line of work. But now as I've progressed through my career, it really is about impact and about kind of what Christine was just touching on. How do we help families? How do we help people of means? And the reality is, everyone on this call, most of the people in our community have been incredibly blessed. We have great privilege. And I'm a person who thinks that with that privilege is great responsibility. And I just want to continue to help lift everyone up with the resources that are available. And so, every day there's something new, there's a new bright, shiny object. And I think one of the things I love working with people is to help us keep a long-term view, focus on what matters, and make sure we're just always working to achieve whatever the long-term goals are that we've set out for ourselves.
Great. Can you both share a little bit more about the family mission statement and maybe a little intel on how to design one, what aspects to think about as you discuss this with your families?
Christine?
So, yeah, sorry, Tori. Just in my family, we've had a mission statement that we've implemented into our businesses. And so that's been the backbone. But I would say that gives us the core values that the family has decided never to deviate from. And I think that, they're obviously very consistent and classic that can transcend time. And it helped that we had a business that aligned with those missions and values being part of the necessary in order to do our job, right? Being in the financial services, we have to have honesty, we have to have integrity, service above self. There's a direct mandate when you're in banking. So, I mean, there's certain things. And then we added the home and faith, because for us, we felt that families, our company has raised so many different family members that have come up through and been our employees, that we definitely understand that our business is alive from the employees that we have today. But I would say that there is a point in the family where you have to get the family together and be able to have an open conversation. So even if you have values, it's how do we apply those values to the current environment that we're living in today? And that will be evolving as our communities evolve. And things that we do today aren't the same as what they did in 1907. So again, that's where the family will navigate pulling those values through and making them applicable. Go ahead, Tori.
Sure. I think it's kind of two different categories are the way I think about it. For Christine and the Walker family and anyone who is an entrepreneur, you own a small business, it's really easy to say, this is the mission statement for our company. We're going to do the right thing for every customer that walks through the door, or make sure every lawn is pristine for all the houses that we, caretake. For a family where maybe the first generation is retired and they've set aside money in a donor advised fund or a private foundation, it can be a slightly different. You're really trying to create a statement around what is the purpose of these funds so that you can narrow the universe of again, all those bright, shiny objects that are going to try to distract you from your primary mission. And so I think it's just important to have that conversation with whatever group is around the table that gets the privilege of advising on the gifting, to say, these are our priorities: their education, their arts, their the environment, natural history, and holding yourself to those values. That's the main point, is giving yourself a tool for focusing. And if you're going to go down that path, you also probably want to say, well, we'll evaluate this every, 5 years or 10 years, so that you give yourself the ability to evolve as well.
I think you said it quite well, that the family mission statement is a tool. We do have another interesting question that kind of piggybacks on this. What other tools do you see as good multi-generational assets for teaching future generations about philanthropy? So private foundations, donor advised funds, charitable gift annuities. What would you recommend?
Well, I'll take a stab at it, and then I'm happy for you to follow up, Christine. So much of this is really situational. And again, it can be so driven by the tax scenario of your current environment. Let's say you may have a significantly appreciated asset that you could contribute to a charitable remainder trust. And at the same time, you may you may have had a banner income year, and you're looking for a way to create a tax deduction. And so maybe just a large cash donation to a donor advised fund is the easier path to go for these more kind of specific financial planning concerns. I always put on the hat of the simplest solution is the best. Of course, you're also thinking about the future of who are the remainder beneficiaries of a trust, what charities matter. I guess getting to the root of the question, how do we incorporate the other family members, future generations, in those giving discussions? The donor advised fund and the private family foundation are probably the easiest tools for having a conversation. Every year comes around, you get to have another conversation about who are the grant recipients this year. So those are some initial thoughts. Christine, what would you share?
Yeah, I would just share that when you're giving either an asset or significant money into a vehicle that's going to last for multiple generations, you're in essence turning it into almost like a business model. And it does satisfy the individual, grantors' financial needs. That's why they're doing it to begin with. They're wanting it to leave a legacy, which will hopefully not mean just random strangers are driving it, but that family actually stays involved and is helping see that money see its mission. You have to understand that it's a culture. It's a culture as to what your family believes in and why it does what it does. And when you start from ground zero, don't forget that there's honestly no culture, right? Unless an individual has been donating time at the Santa Barbara Museum, and I'm just going to pick that as the organization, or have you annually been going to their gala or to an event, and you've been bringing your family to that event because that's what mom and dad want everybody to do, and they pay for everybody's tickets, and they make a big deal out of it, and you make it a pleasant event. But you have to understand that you're creating a culture and an expectation that the family will participate. And just like running a company, you have to figure out how to motivate and get them involved. You can't just put an expectation on them and think that they're going to be happy about it. Over time, they will absorb the mission and they will understand what the family's trying to achieve, and they will build loyalty to what you're doing. But in the beginning phase, you have to train them and make it in a way to motivate them, almost like a teacher would teaching something new to a student. So those skills are very important, and it does take energy and effort. It is really worthwhile if you want to embark on it. And obviously there's tons of professionals out here for the donor advised fund and corporate trustees that can help in order to buffer as families go multiple generations. So lot of tools out there for you.
Thank you. And I don't know if you feel like getting into the details, but we do have a couple questions about CRTs and DAFs and who owns the title. I don't know if you can see that, but
Yeah, I mean, this is worth what you paid for it. But thank you, John, and thank you, Patricia, for submitting the questions, number one. I'm going to say that if you are trying to implement a charitable remainder strategy of any sort, yes, you're going to need a vehicle, you're going to need an entity, a trust that has a trustee, has a named beneficiary, and has some sort of fixed payout plan. It could be an annuity trust, it could be a remainder unit trust. Those are important questions for a CPA or an attorney because the interest rates that are available are depending on what the IRS rules are at the time. So, there are always technical questions and involved in that. And then as it relates to a donor advised fund, my experience has been most donor advised funds are with a large trustee who really only wants to be associated with liquid assets that are easy to manage and distribute from. So those are kind of my 2 cents on Patricia's questions.
don't forget to make a beneficiary for your DAF. So yes, you do designate yearly funds of organizations to receive your gifts over the course of the year, but the museum is happy to be the recipient of your DAF at the end of your life. So I want to thank you both so much. We know that there's so many great values that can be passed on from generation to generation, and we really appreciate your time and expertise and helping us navigate some of the financial and estate planning issues related to that. So thank you again. We have our contact information up on the screen. If you have any questions and would like to reach out to any of us, we're happy to assist you. And we hope, again, as you consider your own estate planning, that you might consider adding the museum. And our Plan Giving Advisory Council is hosting our annual estate planning essentials workshop. That's also on your screen. That's going to be on Sunday, November 16th from 2 to 4. There will also be a reception with estate planning professionals from 4 to 5 on that afternoon. And that event is here at the museum in person. If you need help with your estate plan, or someone that needs to have it updated, this is a great workshop to get kind of some of the essentials taken care of. And as you heard today, there are definitely a lot of different details that go into ensuring your estate plan is properly planned and aligned with your values. Thank you again, Tory and Christine, and thank you to the museum's Plan Giving Advisory Council for helping to coordinate the presentation. And thank you to all of you who attended today. Have a fantastic day.
Thanks.
Take care. Thank you.